Hey guys, tonight we begin with a curious little journey, one that might surprise you with its odd twists and turns. Imagine for a moment you're a noblewoman in medieval Europe. Not the fairy tale version with ball gowns and gallant knights, but the real one, where the glamour comes with a rather pungent catch. It's a life of silk dresses, sure, but also of peculiar rules and unexpected burdens that might make you rethink that princess fantasy. So, settle in, maybe dim the lights or turn on a fan for that soft hum, and let's wander into the past together. If you enjoy this kind of thing, maybe like and subscribe, but only if you feel like it. For now, just relax and let the story unfold. You're about to wake up in a world where being a noblewoman sounds grand but feels like a very strange deal. Let's see what it's really like. You wake up in medieval Europe, sometime around the 13th century. The air is cool, damp, and smells faintly of straw and something you can't quite place. Maybe the ghosts of last week's feast. You're in a castle, your new home, because you, dear listener, are a noblewoman. Your bed is a lumpy mattress stuffed with straw, draped in furs that are luxurious but suspiciously scratchy. The stone walls around you are impressive, yes, but they're also cold, and the tapestries hanging on them do little to keep out the draught. A fire crackles in the corner, but it's more for show than warmth, and the smoke stings your eyes just enough to remind you that central heating is centuries away. As a noblewoman, you're high on the social ladder. Congratulations. You're not toiling in the fields or scrubbing pots, but don't get too comfortable. Your life is less about lounging in splendor and more about navigating a maze of expectations. Your day begins with a servant helping you into layers of clothing so heavy you feel like you're wearing a tent. The gown is embroidered with gold thread, a status symbol, but it's also stiff and smells faintly of the last noblewoman who wore it. Hygiene, you'll quickly learn, is more of a suggestion than a rule. Baths are rare, and the river water used for them is often shared with the local fish, and their opinions on cleanliness. Your first task is to oversee the household, which sounds grand until you realize it's like managing a small chaotic village. The castle is buzzing with servants, cooks and knights who all need direction, and you're the one they look to. You're not just a lady, you're a logistics expert, a diplomat, and occasionally a referee for disputes over who stole whose turnips. And yet, despite all this, your power is limited. Your husband, the Lord, makes the big decisions, or, if you're unmarried, your father does. You're a noblewoman, yes, but your role is to make everything run smoothly while staying firmly in the background. It's a bit like being the stage manager for a play where someone else gets all the applause. As you sip your watered-down wine, because even noblewomen don't get the good stuff at breakfast, you can't help but notice the irony. You're surrounded by wealth, but your life feels like a carefully choreographed performance where one wrong step could ruin the show. And the show, as you'll soon see, is about to get more complicated. The morning sun creeps through a narrow slit of a window, its light pale and hesitant, barely warming the cold stone floor of your chamber. You're summoned to the great hall, and as you step forward, your heavy gown rustles like dry leaves, each layer a reminder of your status and its burdens. You're a noblewoman in medieval Europe, somewhere around the 13th century, and today carries a weight you can feel in your bones. Your father, or perhaps your guardian if fate has already claimed your parents, awaits with news that makes your stomach twist. It's time to discuss your marriage. The word sounds soft in the stories sung by troubadours, all romance and roses, but here it's a transaction, cold as the iron coins in the treasury. The irony is almost laughable. You're draped in silks that took a village to weave, educated in poetry and prayer, yet your future hinges on how well you can broker an alliance or secure a patch of land. You're the bargain, and the market is open for business. You glide into the great hall, a a cavernous space where the air smells of damp wood, wax candles, and the faint lingering musk of yesterday's feast. The long oak table before you is scarred from years of feasts and deals much like this one, its surface a map of scratches and stains that tell their own silent history. You sit, your hands folded in your lap, your posture perfect as you've been taught. The men around you, your father, perhaps a brother, and a handful of advisers with faces like weathered parchment, speak in low, measured tones. Their words weave a future you have little say in, a tapestry of politics and power where you're a single, carefully placed thread. Marriage, you learn, isn't about love or even companionship. It's a contract, a move in the grand chess game of medieval life, where families trade daughters to secure borders, wealth, or favour. You're a noblewoman, adorned in finery that could feed a village for a year, yet they discuss you with the same practicality as a herd of cattle or a shipment of grain. Your dowry, land, gold, maybe a castle or two, is the real star of this conversation, and you're merely its charming packaging. The man they've chosen for you is likely a stranger, his face unknown until the betrothal is sealed. If the stars align, he's young, perhaps a knight with a quick smile and a reputation for not being entirely awful. But luck is a fickle friend in the marriage market, and the odds lean toward a less rosy outcome. He might be a lord twice your age, his beard flecked with grey and smelling faintly of last month's mutton, his manners as rough as the chainmail he wears to battle. Age gaps aren't just common, they're practically a tradition, etched into the fabric of noble life. Consider Margaret of Provence, married at 13 to King Louis IX of France, who was in his 20s. She was fortunate, the chronicles whisper. He was kind, or at least not cruel. But kindness is a luxury, not a guarantee. Your suitor could be a widower seeking a new wife to manage his household, or a minor noble hungry to climb the ranks by marrying into your family's prestige. Either way, your opinion is a formality, a polite nod to decorum rather than a voice that carries weight. You listen as they haggle. How many acres? How many knights? How much coin? Your dowry isn't just a gift, it's a bargaining chip, and the richer it is, the more desirable you become. But there's a catch, as there always is. A lavish dowry might attract a powerful husband, but it also drains your family's coffers, leaving you to wonder if you're a prize or a burden. Carla Watson, a medieval noblewoman who became a queen at 13, was a rare success story, but most women face the marriage market with no such fairy tale ending. Your value lies in what you bring: land, alliances, heirs, not in who you are. The men's voices rise and fall, calm but firm, as if they're trading horses. You're expected to sit still, your expression serene, your grace a shield against the indignity of being bartered. Inside, though, a flicker of rebellion stirs, quickly smothered by the weight of duty. This is your role, to be the bridge between families, the glue that binds alliances, the currency of power. Once the deal is struck, the pressure shifts to your new purpose: producing heirs. The expectation is clear: sons, preferably, to carry on the family name and secure the lineage. Daughters are useful for future alliances, but sons are the goal, and the sooner the better. The birthing chamber looms in your future, a place of whispered prayers and flickering candles, where midwives wield herbs and charms with more hope than science. Medicine is a patchwork of guesswork, boiled nettles for pain, a priest's blessing for luck. Childbirth is a battlefield, and the survival rate for both mother and child is a gamble. Even your noble status can't shield you from the risks. Infection, a concept yet to be named, is a silent killer, and the crude tools of the time, knives, cloths, basins, offer little comfort. You've heard tales of noblewomen who never left the birthing bed, their names fading into the margins of history, their lives reduced to a footnote in the family chronicle. Marriage, though, is about more than heirs. It's about survival. A good match strengthens your family's position, securing alliances against rival lords or ambitious neighbours. A bad match could spell ruin, lands lost, feuds ignited, or a husband who sees you as little more than a means to an end. You might dream of a partnership, a shared life, but the reality is stark. Your husband holds the power. He controls the lands, the wealth, and in many ways you. Even your personal belongings, the jewellery, the gowns you brought as part of your dowry, often belong to him now. The law sees you as an extension of his household, not an individual with rights. Your role is to support, to manage, to endure, all while maintaining the illusion of effortless grace. There's a faint glimmer of hope in widowhood, though it's a bittersweet one. If your husband dies, and many do, thanks to wars, tournaments, or disease, you might gain a sliver of freedom. Widows like Eleanor of Aquitaine, who outlived 2 husbands and ruled vast lands, prove it's possible. As a widow, you could manage estates, negotiate with vassals, or even choose your next husband if you're bold enough. But don't let the dream linger too long. Most widows are pressured to remarry quickly, their lands too valuable to remain in their own hands. Your family, or the king himself, might already have a new match in mind, and the cycle begins anew. Widowhood's freedom is a rare and fleeting gift, often snatched away before you can savour it. As the meeting drags on, you notice the small details that define your role. The men sip ale, their voices growing louder as they debate. You're offered watered-down wine, a subtle reminder that even your indulgences are tempered. Your ladies-in-waiting hover nearby, their eyes sharp, ready to report any misstep to your mother-in-law or the court. Privacy is a myth. Your every word and gesture is watched, judged, whispered about. You're expected to embody virtue, chaste, obedient, devout, while navigating a world where power shifts like the tides. One wrong move, a smile too warm, or a word too bold, could spark rumours that tarnish your family's honour. The troubadours don't help, with their songs of courtly love, comparing your eyes to starlight, or your grace to a swan's glide. It's flattering until you realise they sing the same lines to every noblewoman from here to Normandy. Courtly love is a game, a dance of flattery that skirts scandal without crossing it, but it's a dangerous one. A lingering glance or a misplaced laugh could set the court abuzz with gossip, and a noblewoman's reputation is as fragile as spun glass. The discussion ends, and your future is sealed. You'll marry the chosen lord, move to his castle, and begin a life of duty. You might grow fond of him, or you might not. You might bear healthy children, or you might face loss. The uncertainty is part of the bargain, and you're expected to accept it with grace. As you rise from the table, your gown catching on the rough wood, you feel the weight of it all, the expectations, the alliances, the rules. Being a noblewoman is less about being cherished and more about being useful, a beautifully dressed pawn in a game you didn't choose. You return to your chamber, the castle's stone walls closing in around you. The day is young, but the weight of your future feels heavy, like the furs on your bed. You sit by the window, gazing at the world beyond, and for a moment you wonder what it would be like to choose your own path. But that's a dream for another life. For now, you're part of the marriage market, and the bargain has been struck. The afternoon sun slants through the narrow window of the solar, a small room high in the castle where light is a rare guest. You settle onto a cushioned bench, the wood creaking under the weight of your gown, which feels like it's woven from ambition and obligation. You're a noblewoman in the 13th century Europe, and your day is far from the idle luxury one might imagine. The word work seems out of place for someone of your station. You're not hauling water or scything fields. But don't be fooled. Your life is a tapestry of tasks, each stitch a reminder that even your moments of quiet are part of a larger performance. The castle hums around you, a living beast of stone and sweat, and you're its reluctant keeper. So take a breath, let the soft rustle of your skirts settle, and step into the daily grind of a noblewoman's life, a grind with a surprising amount of embroidery. The solar is your sanctuary, or so it's meant to be. It's a room reserved for noblewomen, a place to sew, read, or pray away from the clamour of the great hall. The walls are hung with tapestries, their colours faded but intricate, depicting hunts or saints that stare down with judgmental eyes. You're handed a needle and thread, the tools of your trade, and you begin to embroider. It's not a hobby, not really, though the act can be soothing when the thread doesn't tangle. Every stitch you make is a statement, your family's wealth, piety, and status woven into altar cloths or cushions that will be admired by bishops or rival lords. Your fingers ache after hours of work, and the irony isn't lost on you. You're creating art that will outlast you, yet it's not for your own glory. It's for the family, the church, the endless display of power that defines your world. One poorly placed stitch could unravel your reputation as a skilled noblewoman, so you focus, the needle a tiny anchor in a sea of expectations. Beyond embroidery, you're the castle's chief administrator, a role that sounds grand until you realise it's like herding cats in a rainstorm. The castle is a small city, buzzing with servants, cooks, grooms and knights, all of whom look to you for direction. You oversee the kitchens, where cooks wrestle with a haunch of venison that's suspiciously past its prime. You check the stores, counting barrels of salted fish and sacks of grain to ensure the household survives the winter. Numbers swirl in your head. How many loaves of bread for the next feast? How much ale to brew before the Lord's return? You're no mathematician, but you've learned to tally with a quill and parchment, your neat script a quiet rebellion against the chaos. Then there's the human element. The baker accuses the brewer of stealing yeast. The laundress swears the chambermaid broke her best bucket, and you, the noblewoman, must mediate. It's exhausting, and you can't help but chuckle at the absurdity. You're running a small empire, yet you can't own a single acre in your own name. Your education sets you apart, a rare privilege in a world where most can't read their own names. You know Latin, perhaps French, enough to read psalms, or manage correspondence for your husband or father. You might even pen a letter to a distant ally, your words carefully chosen to flatter without overstepping. But your knowledge is ornamental, like a jewelled goblet, beautiful, admired, but not meant for serious use. You've been taught to play the lute, its strings humming under your fingers, or to recite poetry that makes the court sigh. Yet when the men gather to discuss war or taxes, your voice is a whisper they don't hear. Your role is to make the castle run smoothly, to ensure the feasts are lavish and the linens spotless, all while fading into the background. It's a peculiar kind of power, one that keeps the world turning but earns you no applause. The castle itself is a study in contradictions. It's a fortress of wealth, yet comfort is a myth. The privies are a nightmare, a stone seat over a pit, with a draught that could freeze your soul. You share the space with flies and the occasional rat, and privacy is as rare as a warm bath. Speaking of baths, they're an event, not a routine. Water is hauled from the river, heated over a fire, and poured into a wooden tub that smells faintly of mildew. You might add a splash of rose water to feel luxurious, but the water's shared with your ladies in waiting, and the fish from the river seem to have left their opinions behind. Hygiene is a suggestion, not a rule, and you've learned to chew parsley to freshen your breath, since toothbrushes are a dream for a future age. Your beauty routine is equally sparse. Rose water for your face, a comb through your hair, and a polished metal mirror that makes you look like a ghostly smudge. You're a noblewoman, yet even your reflection feels like it belongs to someone else. Your ladies-in-waiting are a constant presence, their chatter a soft hum in the background. They're your companions, your confidants, but also your spies, reporting your every move to your husband, your mother-in-law, or the court. A careless word about a rival lord could spark a feud, so you guard your tongue, your smiles measured, your laughter soft. They help you dress, lacing you into gowns so heavy they make your shoulders ache. The fabrics are exquisite, velvet, silk, embroidered with gold, but they're also stiff, recycled from previous owners, and faintly musty. Fashion is a statement, not a choice, and every gown is a reminder that you're a walking billboard for your family's status. You might long to kick off the layers and run barefoot through the fields, but that's a fantasy for peasants, not noble women. As the day wears on, you move from the solar to the courtyard, where the castle's pulse beats louder. You inspect the stables, ensuring the horses are fed, their coats gleaming for the next hunt. You visit the chapel, where you kneel in prayer, not just for your soul, but for the appearance of piety. The church expects your devotion, and your family expects your donations. Gold for a new altar, parchment for a monk's manuscript. It's another performance, one that costs coin and time. You might even oversee the training of a young page, teaching him manners or the basics of a hymn, though his fidgeting makes you smile. These small moments of humanity are rare, a brief respite from the endless tasks that define your day. The irony of your life settles over you like dust. You're privileged, yes, with your fine clothes and educated mind, but you're also trapped in a role that demands constant vigilance. You manage the castle's chaos, yet own nothing. You're admired for your grace, yet judged for every misstep. Even your hobbies, embroidery, music, prayer, serve the family's image, not your own joy. You think of women like Hildegard of Bingen, a noblewoman who turned her talents into visions and music that echoed through the ages. But she was an exception, a star in a sky most noblewomen never reached. Your life is quieter, your name less likely to be remembered, your days a slow grind of duty wrapped in silk. As evening approaches, the solar grows dim, the candles casting long shadows on the walls. You set down your needle, your fingers stiff and stretch, the crack of your knuckles a tiny rebellion against the day's demands. The castle is never truly still. Servants bustle, a dog barks in the distance, the wind whistles through the arrow slits. But for a moment, you're alone with your thoughts. You're a noblewoman, a linchpin in a world that doesn't quite belong to you. The tasks will start again tomorrow, the embroidery, the accounts, the endless balancing act of grace and grit. But for now, you let the quiet settle, the hum of the castle fading into a lullaby. The daily grind with its extra embroidery is yours to bear, and you do so with the poise of someone who knows no other way. Evening falls, and the castle's great hall comes alive with the flicker of torches and the clatter of trenchers. You stand at the threshold, your gown a cascade of velvet and embroidery that took 3 servants to lace, its weight a reminder of the role you're about to play. You're a noblewoman in the 13th century Europe, and tonight you're the star of a social stage, though it's less about basking in admiration and more about performing a delicate, high-stakes dance. The air hums with music, laughter, and the faint scent of roasted meat, but every eye is on you, waiting for a misstep. So take a slow breath, let the warmth of the hall wrap around you like a heavy cloak, and step into a world where every gesture is scrutinized, and grace is your only shield. The great hall is a sea of faces, knights in tunics, ladies in jewelled headdresses, and servants darting between tables like minnows. You take your place at the high table, elevated above the crowd, a position that screams privilege but feels like a spotlight. Your husband, or perhaps your father if you're yet unwed, sits beside you, his presence a reminder of the hierarchy that governs your world. The feast is a spectacle, a display of your family's wealth, platters of swan, venison, and fruits you've never seen outside a royal court. But eating is secondary to performing. You sip your wine, watered down of course, because even indulgence is rationed, and cut your meat with a precision that would make a surgeon jealous. Spill a drop, and the court will whisper about your clumsiness for weeks, laugh too loudly, and you're improper, too quietly, and you're haughty. It's a tightrope, and the audience is relentless. Your role is to embody the ideal noblewoman, graceful, pious, serene. Every move is a performance, from the way you tilt your head to acknowledge a toast to the careful fold of your hands in your lap. The court watches, not just to admire, but to judge. A misplaced word or an unguarded glance could spark gossip that spreads faster than a summer fire. You've heard tales of noblewomen whose reputations crumbled over a single misstep, a dance too close with a charming knight, a jest taken out of context. The irony is almost amusing. You're draped in wealth, your every need attended to, yet your freedom is as thin as the parchment you write on. You're a symbol, not a person, and the stage never lets you forget it. Religion is part of the performance, a cornerstone of your public image. You attend Mass daily, your knees aching on the cold chapel floor, your prayers a blend of habit and hope. The church demands your devotion, and your family demands you display it. You donate gold for a new altar, commission a manuscript for the monks, not out of burning faith, but because it's expected. The priests in their velvet robes preach humility while sipping from silver chalices, and you can't help but notice the contradiction. Indulgences, those pricey tickets to heaven, are sold with a smile, and you wonder if salvation comes with a receipt. Your piety is public, performative, and very expensive, a costume you wear as surely as your gown. Then there's the game of courtly love, a peculiar ritual that adds spice to the evening. A troubadour strums his lute, his voice weaving tales of your beauty, your eyes like starlight, your hair like spun gold. It's flattering, in a rehearsed sort of way, until you realize he's recycling the same metaphors for every lady in the room. Courtly love is a dance of words, a flirtation that's meant to charm without crossing into scandal. Knights might dedicate a song or a joust to you, their gestures grand but carefully choreographed. You smile, nod, perhaps offer a token, a ribbon, a glove, but you tread carefully. A smile too warm or a laugh too free could ignite rumours of impropriety. You've heard of noblewomen banished to convents for less, their names whispered as warnings. The troubadour's song is a trap wrapped in poetry, and you're too wise to fall for it. Your friendships are another layer of the performance. The other noblewomen at the feast, with their glittering jewels and practiced smiles, are both allies and rivals. You exchange pleasantries, compliment their gowns, share a laugh over a clumsy page. But every friendship is strategic, a thread in the web of alliances that hold your world together. Your closest confidant might marry your cousin to secure his inheritance or betray a secret to curry favour with a rival lord. Trust is a luxury you can't afford, and the thought lingers as you sip your wine, its taste more bitter than sweet. You're surrounded by people, yet alone, your every word weighed and measured. The feast also serves a political purpose. Tonight your family hosts a neighbouring lord, his retinue filling the hall with boisterous laughter. Your role is to charm, to make the evening seamless, to ensure the alliance holds. You signal the servants to refill goblets, direct the minstrels to play a livelier tune, all while maintaining a serene facade. If war looms, you might be called upon to rally the castle's defences while the men are away. A task that sounds empowering until you realise it's just another duty you can't fail. The plague, too, is a shadow in the background. You've heard of entire courts wiped out by disease, and the thought hovers as you pick at your roasted swan, its flavour lost to the weight of expectation. As the evening winds down, the torches burn low, casting long shadows across the hall. The guests depart, their voices fading into the night, and you retire to your chamber, the weight of the performance lifting slightly. You've played your part, graceful, poised, untouchable, but the cost is a quiet exhaustion that settles into your bones. Being a noblewoman is a paradox. You're the centre of attention, yet invisible, admired, yet constrained. The court sees you as a symbol of virtue, but you know the truth. You're a player on a stage where the script is written by others, and the applause is never truly for you. You sit by your chamber's small fire, its crackle a soft counterpoint to the silence. The castle is quieter now, though never truly still. A servant's footsteps, a distant dog's bark, the wind sigh through the arrow slits. You're a noblewoman, a star on the social stage, but the role is relentless. Tomorrow you'll do it again. The smiles, the prayers, the careful dance of words and gestures. For now, though, you let the fire's warmth lull you, the day's performance fading into the shadows. The stage will wait, and you, with all your grace, will step onto it once more. The fire in your chamber has dwindled to a soft glow, its embers casting fleeting shadows on the stone walls. You lie in your bed, the lumpy mattress beneath you cloaked in furs that are heavy with both warmth and the faint must of age. You're a noblewoman in the 13th century Europe, and the castle around you is settling into a restless quiet, punctuated by the distant creak of a floorboard or the low howl of a dog beyond the walls. The day's weight lingers, its duties, its performances, its unspoken rules, and as you close your eyes, you feel the strange paradox of your life settling over you like a heavy blanket. So, let the world fade, let the soft hum of the night carry you, and drift into the twilight of a world that's both grand and confining, a world that's not truly yours. Your chamber is a small island in the vast sea of the castle, its stone walls a fortress and a cage. The tapestries, with their faded hunts and saints, seem to watch you as you lie there, their threads a reminder of the countless hours you've spent weaving your own role into the family's story. Being a noblewoman, you've learned, is a life of contradictions. You're draped in silks that shimmer like moonlight, yet your days are bound by tasks that belong to others. Your husband, your father, the church, the court. You've managed the castle's chaos, brokered peace between squabbling servants, and smiled through feasts where every glance was a judgment. You're privileged, yes, with your fine gowns and educated mind, but that privilege comes with chains so delicate they're almost invisible. The irony is as soft as the furs beneath you. You're a figure of power, yet you own nothing. Not the land, not the wealth, not even the choices that shape your life. As you sink deeper into the bed, your thoughts drift to the women who walked this path before you. Some, like Hildegard of Bingen, turn their confinement into creation, her visions and music soaring beyond the cloister's walls. She was a noblewoman who bent the rules, her voice echoing through centuries when most were forgotten. Others, like Joan of Arc, broke the mould entirely, trading gowns for armour and paying the ultimate price. But most noblewomen, the ones history barely names, lived lives like yours, quiet, dutiful, their days a slow weave of embroidery, prayer, and management. They bore children or didn't. They strengthened alliances or watched them crumble. They kept the castle's heart beating while the world turned its gaze to kings and knights. Their names may have faded, but their labour lingers in the stones around you, in the tapestries, in the very air you breathe. You think of the marriage market, where you were a bargain struck to secure land or loyalty. You recall the daily grind, your needle-stitching status into every cloth, your quill-balancing accounts that belong to someone else. The social stage, with its watchful eyes and whispered gossip, feels like a dream now, its music and laughter fading into the night. Each moment of your day was a performance, a careful dance of grace and restraint, and you played it well. But the cost is this quiet ache, this sense that you're both essential and invisible. You've poured your energy into a world that sees you as a symbol, a wife, a mother, a pious lady, but rarely as yourself. The thought is heavy, yet oddly soothing, like the weight of the furs pressing you into sleep. The castle's sounds are a lullaby now, the wind whistling through arrow slits, the faint crackle of the fire, the distant tread of a servant's footsteps. You imagine the world beyond these walls, a world of fields and forests you'll never wander freely. As a noblewoman, your life is bound to this castle, its routines, its expectations. Yet in this moment you feel a curious detachment, as if you're floating above it all. You're not just a noblewoman anymore, you're something more, something less. A whisper of a person who might have chosen a different path in a different time. The thought is fleeting, a spark in the dark, and you let it go, letting the night take it. What would it be like, you wonder, to live in a world where your voice carried weight, where your choices were your own? The question lingers, soft and unanswerable, as you drift closer to sleep. You see flashes of other lives, Hildegard's quill scratching visions, Eleanor of Aquitaine's sharp wit bending courts to her will. But those were exceptions, stars in a sky you can only gaze at. Your life is smaller, its triumphs quieter, a well-run feast, a child who survived the winter, a tapestry that made a bishop nod in approval. These are the threads of your story, and though they may not be sung by troubadours, they're yours. The fire's last embers pulse, their glow a faint heartbeat. You're no longer in the castle, not really. The stone walls dissolve, the furs lighten, and you're back in your own bed, the hum of a modern fan replacing the wind's sigh. The medieval world fades, its weight lifting like a dream you can't quite hold. You've walked a day in a noblewoman's shoes, felt the silk and the strain, the privilege and the prison. It was a life of beauty and burden, of moments that glittered and moments that chafed. And now, as you hover on the edge of sleep, you're glad to be here, in a world where the rules are different, where the stage is yours to choose. The night is deep now, the castle a memory. You've seen its truths, the irony of a life both grand and small, the humour in its absurdities, the quiet strength it demanded. You've lived it, if only for a moment, and that's enough. Tomorrow the world will turn again, with new stories to tell, new histories to wander. But for now, let the darkness wrap around you, soft as a fur, warm as a fading fire. Rest, dear listener, in the gentle hum of the present, where the only performance is the rhythm of your breath. Good night. Now let's dive into another story, a story so quiet it's practically drowned out by the clamour of history's louder moments. Imagine a life where your daily work is to shepherd souls into the next world, not with fanfare, but with a soft chant and a flicker of candlelight. The life of a medieval funeral priest isn't exactly the stuff of epic ballads. Ironic, isn't it, that the person who stood at the edge of life and death was often forgotten by the living? Yet here we are, ready to walk through their world, one solemn step at a time. You wake up in medieval Europe, in a small stone cottage pressed against the cold grey walls of a village church. It's 1372, and the world outside is shrouded in the soft, damp mist of pre-dawn. Your bed is a simple straw mattress, lumpy from years of use, tucked beneath a low ceiling that creaks when the wind moves. The air is sharp with the chill of early autumn, and you pull your woolen blanket tighter, reluctant to leave its meagre warmth. You're a funeral priest, a man whose days are spent guiding souls from this world to the next, not with trumpets or glory, but with quiet chants and the flicker of a single candle. It's a strange life, isn't it? To be so close to death, yet so far from the clamour of life. You rise, your knees protesting as they always do, and light a tallow candle on the small wooden table beside your bed. Its flame sputters, casting a trembling glow across the room. The walls are bare, save for a wooden cross hanging above the door and a worn psalter resting on a stool, its pages curling like the edges of a dream. A small chest in the corner holds your vestments, black, frayed, but carefully folded. You're not wealthy, not by any measure, but you're not hungry either. Death, after all, is a reliable employer, always calling you to its side. You pull on your robe, the coarse fabric scratching against your skin, and step outside. The village is still asleep, wrapped in a silence so deep it feels like the world is holding its breath. The fog clings to the ground, curling around the thatched roofs of wattle and daub houses like a cat seeking warmth. A rooster crows in the distance, sharp and insistent, and somewhere a dog answers with a lazy bark. The church looms beside your cottage, its squat stone form more sturdy than grand, its steeple a modest finger pointing to the heavens. You push open the heavy oak door, the hinges groaning as if they too are reluctant to wake. Inside, the air smells of wax, old wood, and a faint sourness, perhaps the ghost of prayers offered over centuries. The church is small, built for a village of no more than 200 souls, but it feels vast in the dim light. The altar stands at the far end, draped in a plain cloth, flanked by 2 iron candlesticks. You light them now, their flames joining your candle's glow, and kneel before the altar. Your breath is visible in the cold, a fleeting cloud that rises with your prayers. The Latin comes easily, a rhythm as familiar as your own heartbeat. Requiem aeternam dona eis, Domine. Eternal rest grant unto them, O Lord. You say it for the dead, but sometimes you wonder if it's for yourself, a plea for peace in a life spent walking with shadows. The village knows you, though not the way they know the baker or the blacksmith. You're the funeral priest, the one they call when the fever lingers too long or the ploughman's heart gives out. It's an odd kind of intimacy. You're there at the end, when tears are fresh and words are few, but you're rarely invited to the moments of joy. The harvest festival, the weddings, the christenings, they belong to the parish priest, with his stern sermons and his ledger of tithes. You, though, you're the one they turn to when the light fades, when the world feels too heavy to bear. There's a dry irony in it, isn't there? You're essential, yet always on the edges. The villagers nod to you in the lane, their eyes sliding away as if death might catch them looking. You don't mind, not really. There's a quiet dignity in your work, a purpose in being the one who stays when others turn away. You move to the small sacristy, checking the supplies you'll need for the day. A vial of holy water, a censer for incense, a book of rites so worn the ink is fading. You don't know who you'll bury today. Maybe no one, maybe old Margaret, who's been coughing since spring. But you're ready, as you always are. Outside the fog is lifting, revealing the churchyard in all its cluttered glory. Graves crowd the space, their wooden crosses tilting like weary soldiers. Some are new, the earth still mounded. Others are so old the names have worn away, leaving only splinters and memory. You pause by the gate, your hand resting on the cold iron. The village is waking now. Smoke curls from chimneys, a cartwheel creaks, a child laughs somewhere in the distance. Life goes on as it always does, but you know better than most how fragile it is. A fever, a fall, a bad winter, any of them can bring you back here to this patch of earth where the living and the dead share the same ground. You turn back to the church, your steps slow, deliberate. There's work to do, candles to trim, prayers to rehearse, a grave to check if Thomas the gravedigger has been at it. Your life is small, measured in moments of loss, but it's yours. You're not a hero, not a scholar, not even a particularly good priest if you're honest. But you're the one who shows up, who speaks the words, who makes the end feel a little less like falling into the dark. And for now, as the first rays of sunlight break through the mist, that's enough. You're kneeling in the churchyard, your hands tugging at stubborn weeds that cling to the base of a weathered cross. The morning is quiet, the kind of quiet that settles over a village like a soft blanket, broken only by the distant clink of a blacksmith's hammer and the low hum of bees in the clover. It's 1372, and you're a funeral priest in a small medieval village, your life woven into the moments when others' lives unravel. The air smells of damp earth and the faint sweetness of fading wildflowers, and the sun is just high enough to warm your back through your worn black robe. You pause, brushing dirt from your fingers, and that's when you hear the patter of running feet. A boy rounds the corner of the church, his face flushed, his chest heaving. "Father," he gasps, skidding to a stop. "It's old Margaret. She's gone." You nod, the news settling over you like dust. Margaret was old, older than most. Some whispered she was nearing 60, a number that feels like a myth in a world where 40 is a triumph. Her cough had lingered through the summer, a dry rattle that grew quieter as her strength faded. You'd seen it coming, though you never say so. Death doesn't surprise you anymore, but it still carries a weight, like a stone you slip into your pocket and carry for the day. You stand, brushing the earth from your knees, and gather your things from the sacristy. A small glass vial of holy water, its surface catching the light like a tiny star. A bronze censer, blackened from years of swinging incense. And your book of rites, its leather cover soft as skin from constant handling. You tuck them into a satchel, sling it over your shoulder, and set out for Margaret's cottage. The village lanes are narrow, winding between houses of wattle and daub, their thatched roofs sagging under the weight of time. A woman pauses her sweeping to nod at you, her eyes flicking away quickly, as if death might follow you like a shadow. You're used to it, the way people look at you, need you, but never quite want you near. The cottage is at the edge of the village, its walls leaning slightly, like an old man resting on a staff. Inside, the air is thick with the smell of herbs, rosemary and thyme, strewn across the floor to mask the scent of sickness, and something heavier, the unmistakable stillness of death. Margaret lies on a pallet in the corner, her face pale and sunken, her hands folded neatly across her chest. Her daughter Ellen stands nearby, her eyes red but dry, as if she's cried herself empty. Ellen's husband John hovers behind her, his broad shoulders hunched, and their 3 children cling to each other, their faces a mix of fear and curiosity. You've seen this tableau before, the way grief shrinks a room, makes people small and quiet, as if they're afraid to take up space in a world that's just lost someone. You step forward, your voice low and steady, like water over stones. "May her soul find rest in the arms of the Lord," you say, and the words feel like a thread, stitching the moment together. You set your satchel down and begin the rites. First, the holy water, sprinkled gently over Margaret's body, the droplets catching the dim light from the cottage's single window. Then the censer, its chain clinking softly as you swing it, releasing curls of incense that rise like prayers. You open your book, though you hardly need it, and begin the office of the dead. Libera me, Domine, de morte aeterna. Deliver me, O Lord, from eternal death. The Latin is a rhythm, a pulse, filling the room with something ancient and unyielding. The family watches, their hands clasped, their breaths shallow, as if your words are a rope they can cling to in the dark. There's an irony here, one you've felt 100 times. You're the one they call when hope is gone, when the physician has packed his herbs and the prayers for healing have failed. You're not a healer, not a miracle worker, just a man with a book and a voice, trying to make sense of the senseless. Yet there's power in it, isn't there? Not the kind that builds castles or wins wars, but the kind that holds a family together when the world feels like it's crumbling. You glance at Ellen, her face etched with lines that weren't there last spring, and you wonder what she sees when she looks at you. A priest? A stranger? A reminder of what's coming for us all? You move to Margaret's body, your hands gentle as you begin the washing. It's humble work, intimate in a way that makes your chest ache. You dip a cloth in a basin of water, wiping her face, her hands, her feet, preparing her for the shroud. The linen is plain, a little patched, but it's clean, and you wrap her carefully, folding the fabric with the same care you'd give a sleeping child. Ellen watches, her lips trembling, and you meet her eyes for a moment, offering a small nod. It's not much, but it's what you have, a silent promise that you'll see this through. When the rites are done, Ellen presses a coin into your hand. A farthing, maybe two, enough for a loaf of bread or a cup of ale. "Thank you, Father," she whispers, her voice barely audible. You nod again, slipping the coin into your robe, and promise to say a mass for Margaret's soul tomorrow. It's a small thing, but it matters. To her, to the village, to the rhythm of this life you've chosen. You step outside, the air cool and sharp after the stuffiness of the cottage. The sun is low now, painting the sky in shades of lavender and gold, and the village is settling into evening. A child runs past, chasing a hoop, and the sound of laughter feels like a small defiance against the weight of the day. You walk back toward the church, your steps slow, the satchel lighter now, but your heart heavier. There's a quiet absurdity to your work. You spend your days ushering souls into eternity, yet you're still just a man who gets mud on his robe, who forgets the words to a prayer now and then. You're not holy, not really, but you're here, showing up when no one else can. The churchyard comes into view, its graves like silent sentinels, and you pause at the gate. Tomorrow you'll be back here, preparing Margaret's grave with Thomas the gravedigger, saying the words that send her on her way. For now, though, you let the evening settle around you, the sky deepening to twilight, the stars just beginning to prick through the dusk. You breathe in, the air tasting of earth and smoke, and head inside, ready to close the day as softly as you began it. You're back in the churchyard, standing among the graves as the afternoon sun slants through the bare branches of an old yew tree. It's 1372, and you're a funeral priest in a small medieval village, your days shaped by the quiet task of sending souls to their rest. The air carries the sharp scent of turned earth and the faint musk of decaying leaves, and your black robe brushes against the grass, damp from last night's rain. The churchyard is a crowded patchwork, graves pressed so close together you have to step carefully, as if the dead might mind your boots on their rest. You're here to prepare for old Margaret's burial, her passing still fresh from this morning's visit to her cottage. The graves tell a story of their own, don't they? Some are new, the soil still mounded, the wooden crosses sharp-edged and pale. Others are old, their markers weathered to stubs, names long since blurred by wind and time. You pass a tiny grave, no bigger than a cradle, and your heart catches a child gone before its first summer. Nearby is a larger one, its cross tilting like a weary soldier, belonging to a farmer you buried 3 winters ago, his body worn out by the plough. You've buried so many here, mothers lost to childbirth, old men felled by fever, young men broken by a fall or a fight. Each one is a name, a face, a moment you carry, like stones in a sack that never quite empties. You hear the rhythmic thud of a shovel before you see him. Thomas the gravedigger, his broad hands making quick work of Margaret's grave. He's a big man, with a laugh that could startle the crows, though today he's quiet, his brow slick with sweat despite the cool air. "Hard ground today," he mutters, pausing to lean on his shovel. "Margaret'll rest deep, though. No wolves'll get her." You smile faintly, the corner of your mouth twitching. Thomas always talks about wolves, as if they're lurking just beyond the village, waiting for a poorly dug grave. You haven't seen one in years, but you let him have his story. It's his way of filling the silence, just as your prayers are yours. You kneel beside the half-dug grave, checking the depth, though Thomas knows his work better than anyone. The earth is dark, heavy with clay, and you run your fingers through it, feeling its cold weight. There's something grounding about it, this act of preparing a place for the dead. It's not glamorous. No one writes songs about digging graves, but it's honest. You glance at the church, its stone walls solid against the fading light, and think of the irony. You spend your life tending to endings, yet the world keeps turning, oblivious. The baker's still kneading dough, the children are still chasing hoops, and here you are, making room for one more. The village begins to gather as the sun dips lower, a small crowd in patched tunics and worn shoes, their faces etched with the quiet grief of those who've done this before. Ellen, Margaret's daughter, stands at the front, her hands clasped so tightly her knuckles are white. Her children huddle close, their eyes wide, as if the grave might swallow them too. You nod to them, a small gesture of reassurance, and take your place at the head of the grave. Your book of rites is open in your hands, though you know the words by heart. You begin, your voice soft but steady, like a river finding its course. De profundis clamavi ad te, Domine. Out of the depths I cry to you, O Lord. The words fall gently, weaving through the crowd, and you sprinkle holy water over the grave, the droplets catching the last of the sunlight like tiny sparks. Thomas lowers Margaret's shrouded body, the linen stark against the dark earth, and the crowd murmurs, "Amen," as he begins to shovel dirt back in. The sound is rhythmic, almost soothing, each clod a note in a song no one wants to sing. You watch the grave fill, the mound rising, and feel the familiar weight settle in your chest. It's not sadness, not exactly, just the heaviness of being the one who stays, who sees it through. There's a quiet absurdity to your role, isn't there? You're the keeper of last moments, the one who gives shape to chaos, yet you're still just a man who gets dirt under his nails, who trips over roots in the churchyard. You're not a saint, not even close. You've forgotten prayers mid-sentence, spilled holy water, mispronounced a name in the middle of a rite. But you show up every time, and maybe that's enough. The villagers don't need perfection. They need you to stand here, to say the words, to make death feel like something other than the end of everything. The burial is over quickly, as burials often are. The crowd disperses, their footsteps soft on the grass, their voices low as they return to their hearths and chores. Ellen lingers a moment, her eyes on the fresh grave, then turns away, her children trailing behind her. You stay, watching the sky deepen to a bruised purple, the first stars faint against the dusk. Thomas claps you on the shoulder, his shovel slung over his back like a warrior's sword. "Another one done," he says, and you nod, the words too simple for the weight they carry. You walk the churchyard one last time, checking the crosses, straightening one that's tipped too far. The air is cooler now, the night settling in like a guest who plans to stay. You think of Margaret, her cough finally silent, her soul. Where? You don't know, not really. You say the prayers, you light the candles, but the mystery remains, vast and unyielding. Doubt creeps in sometimes, a whisper in the dark, but you push it away. Your job isn't to know, it's to do, to be the one who stands at the edge and doesn't flinch. The church door creaks as you step inside, the candles still burning low on the altar. You'll be back tomorrow for a mass, for another grave, for another soul. For now, you let the silence of the church wrap around you, its walls holding centuries of prayers, of losses, of lives that ended here. You're not saving the world, not changing it, just holding it together, one grave at a time. And as you blow out the candles, the darkness feels less like an end and more like a pause, a breath before the next day begins. You're standing at the altar of the village church, the morning light filtering through narrow windows, casting pale slants across the stone floor. It's 1372, and you're a funeral priest, your life a quiet thread woven through the endings of others. The air smells of wax and old incense, and the chill of the night lingers in the walls, making your breath faintly visible as you prepare for old Margaret's Mass. The church is nearly empty, just Ellen and her eldest son Thomas sitting in the front pew, their faces pale in the glow of the candles you lit before dawn. You adjust your black robe, its hem frayed from years of brushing against graves, and open your psalter, though the words are etched in your memory like carvings in stone. You begin the Requiem Mass, your voice low and steady, a soft current carrying the moment forward. Requiem aeternam. Dona Eis, Domine, eternal rest grant unto them, O Lord. The Latin fills the small church, echoing faintly off the rafters, and you feel the familiar rhythm settle over you, like a hand smoothing a wrinkled cloth. The Requiem is your work, your purpose, a prayer not for the living, but for those already gone, a bridge between this world and whatever lies beyond. You glance at Ellen, her hands folded tightly in her lap, and wonder what she hears in your words. Hope? Comfort? Or just the sound of duty, done as it's always been? There's a quiet irony in this moment, isn't there? You stand here, chanting for Margaret's soul, yet you're no closer to understanding where she's gone than anyone else. The church says heaven or hell, purgatory for those in between, but you've buried too many to believe it's that simple. Babies who never drew breath, old women like Margaret who lived long enough to become stories, men cut down by a fever or a fall, where do they all go? You push the thought away, focusing on the words, dies irae, dies illa, day of wrath, that day. The hymn is meant to stir fear, to warn of judgment, but you say it gently, like a lullaby for the dead, letting the notes fall soft and slow. You move through the Mass, your hands steady as you raise the chalice, its surface worn smooth by years of use. The bread and wine are simple, the village too poor for ornate vestments or silver, but there's a kind of beauty in the plainness, a truth that doesn't need embellishment. You speak the Agnus Dei, Lamb of God, who takes away the sins of the world, and sprinkle holy water over the altar, the droplets catching the light like fleeting stars. Ellen and Thomas bow their heads, their silence louder than any prayer, and you feel the weight of their trust in you, fragile as a candle flame. You've always found the Requiem strangely comforting, not for its promises but for its rhythm, its insistence that death is part of a larger pattern. You imagine Margaret's soul, light as a breath, drifting upward through the church's rafters, past the grey sky and into the vast unknown. It's a thought you hold lightly, not because you believe it wholly, but because it's a good thing to picture, a way to make the end feel less like falling into darkness. You've said these words for so many, hundreds maybe in your years as a priest, yet each time feels new, as if the soul you're praying for might hear you, might need you to get it right. When the Mass ends, Ellen rises, her son trailing behind her. She approaches the altar, her apron twisted in her hands, her eyes bright with unshed tears. "Will she be all right, Father?" she asks, her voice barely a whisper. You want to give her certainty, a promise carved in stone, but all you have is what you've always had. She's with God now, you say, and the words feel small but true, like a seed planted in uncertain soil. Ellen nods, her lips trembling, and turns to leave, Thomas's hand on her shoulder. The church door creaks as they step out, and you're alone again, the silence settling like dust. You linger, tidying the altar, polishing the chalice with a cloth until it gleams faintly in the dim light. The task is small, but it anchors you, gives your hands something to do while your mind wanders. You think of the book system, Book of the Dead, its pages yellowed and curling like the edges of old memories. You open it, adding Margaret's name in small, careful letters, and close it with a sigh. The irony of your life isn't lost on you, spending your days recording names that will fade while your own name goes unwritten. You're the keeper of endings, yet your own story feels like a shadow, barely noticed against the weight of the dead. You step outside, the morning air cool and sharp, and lock the church door behind you. The village is waking, smoke curling from chimneys, a cart rattling down the lane. You pull your robe tighter and head toward your cottage, the book still in your hands. There's a strange peace in these quiet moments, when the world is still and your work feels like a secret shared only with the dead. You've done your part for Margaret, said the words, lit the candles. Tomorrow there'll be another name, another grave, but for now you've given her a proper farewell. You slip the book onto its shelf and sit by the small fire in your cottage, the warmth seeping into your bones. It's enough, you think, to be the one who remembers, even if no one remembers you. You're sitting in your small stone cottage, the fire in the hearth casting a warm, flickering glow across the rough walls. It's 1372, and you're a funeral priest in a quiet medieval village, your days shaped by the endings of others. Night has settled over the world outside, wrapping the village in a stillness broken only by the occasional hoot of an owl or the soft sigh of the wind through the thatch. The air smells of wood smoke and damp earth, and your hands, still dusted with the day's work, cradle a cup of weak ale, its bitter taste familiar, grounding. You're alone, as you often are, the fire your only company, its pops and crackles a kind of conversation in the dark. Your life is small, isn't it? No grand adventures to recount, no tales of valour to share over a flagon at the alehouse. You're the man who shows up when the story ends, when the laughter fades and the candles burn low. You think of old Margaret, buried today, her grave now just another mound in the crowded churchyard. You think of Ellen, her eyes heavy with grief, and the way her son's hand rested on her shoulder, steadying her as they walked away. You've seen so many moments like that, hands reaching, eyes meeting, silences that say more than words ever could. They're the threads that stitch your days together, fragile but unbreakable. There's a quiet irony in your work, a truth you've carried for years. You're the keeper of last moments, the one who speaks the prayers, who folds the shroud, who makes death feel like something other than chaos, yet you're no one's hero, no one's confidant. The villagers nod to you in the lanes, but they don't linger, as if death might cling to your robe like burrs. You don't mind, not really. There's a strange peace in being the one who stays, who sees what others turn away from. You sip your ale, the firelight dancing in the dark liquid, and let your mind wander to the graves you've tended, the names you've written in the church's book of the dead. You lean back in your chair, the wood creaking under your weight, and stare into the flames. Each grave is a story, isn't it? The child who never saw her first spring, the farmer whose hands were rough as the earth he tilled, the old woman whose cough finally fell silent. You've buried them all, your voice a steady rhythm through their endings. Requiem aeternam dona eis, Domine. Eternal rest grant unto them, O Lord. You wonder, not for the first time, what it all means. Do the dead hear your prayers? Do they need them? Or are you just a man muttering Latin to the stars, hoping someone, somewhere, is listening? The thought is a familiar one, heavy but not crushing. You've long since made peace with the questions, with the not knowing. Your job isn't to solve the mystery of death, it's to stand at its edge, to offer words when words are all that's left. You think of the churchyard, its crosses tilting like weary sentinels, and the way the earth holds each soul, gentle as a mother's arms. There's beauty in that, even if it's a beauty no one else sees. You're not saving the world, not changing it, just holding it together, one quiet moment at a time. The fire pops, sending a spark skittering across the hearth, and you smile faintly. There's a kind of poetry in your life, though you'd never call it that. You're the one who lights the candles, who swings the censer, who says the words that let the living let go. It's not glamorous, not the stuff of ballads, but it's yours. You set the cup down, its contents half finished, and lean forward, resting your elbows on your knees. Tomorrow will bring another call, a fever, a fall, a heart that simply stops. You'll be there, as you always are, with your book and your prayers, your voice a soft thread in the tapestry of the village. You rise, your joints stiff from the day's work, and add a log to the fire. The flames flare briefly, casting shadows that dance like ghosts on the walls. You think of your own ending, inevitable as the turning of the seasons. Who will bury you? Who will say the requiem for a priest who spent his life saying it for others? The thought isn't sad, just curious, like a question you'll leave unanswered. You've seen enough to know that life goes on, that the world doesn't pause for anyone, not even you. You cross the room to your straw mattress, the blanket folded neatly at its foot. The cottage is small, its walls close, but it feels like enough. A place to rest, to gather yourself for the next day's work. You blow out the candle on the table, the darkness settling soft and heavy, and lie down, the straw rustling beneath you. The fire's glow lingers, a faint warmth against the night, and you close your eyes. The world outside is quiet, the village asleep, the stars keeping watch above. You drift, your thoughts softening, and imagine the souls you've buried. Margaret, the child, the farmer, watching from somewhere beyond the dark. Sleep comes gently, like a tide easing in. Your life is a small one, measured in graves and prayers, but it's enough. You've done your part, stood at the edge, spoken the words, and as you slip into dreams, the fire burning low, you feel a kind of peace, as if the night itself is saying, "Rest now, priest. Your work is done for tonight."